Hi, welcome to the PhD Journey Unplugged podcast. As you can see, I have a guest today with me. First, my name is Dr. Sarah Gordon. If you're joining me for the first time, I'm the host of this podcast, and I have my friend and former classmate from my PhD program, Dr. Rayhan Tahir, on. And if you've been following this podcast from the earlier episodes, you know that Dr. Tahir was on the show earlier on to talk about perspectives of successful aging. And he's back today to join me for a special Thanksgiving message. And our message today is going to be about the power of hope. And when I presented this to Dr. Tahir, we both thought, given entering into the holiday season, this may be a important message for our listeners to hear today. So welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gordon, and hello to all the listeners out there, those that are participating. And I'm excited to be here again with you and to talk through some of those perspectives on what is hope and maybe give a little bit of some insights from us.
Excellent. I always like to say before we get started at the beginning of all the episodes that the information in the podcast is for general informational purposes only and should not be taken as professional advice. So we share our perspectives based on our personal experiences, our academic experiences, our professional experiences, and we frame it within a mental, physical, and social emotional health platform. So, so here we are, episode 34.
Nice.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you. I have to go back and look. I think you were re probably one of
Episode
the first
12,
10.
yeah, I believe it was like episode 12 is what kind of
Well, yeah, it was
seems to
early
ring a
on.
bell. Yeah.
Well, welcome back. And like I said, I wanted to talk about hope today and why hope is important and why I think sometimes around the holidays, sometimes they can be tough for people. And it was funny. I was thinking about this on the last episode about Thanksgiving holiday. And do you remember in school, like wondering, like, do we get off for Thanksgiving? And it's like, no, you don't get off for Thanksgiving. You just have to keep working through the holiday. And sometimes I felt a little bit overwhelming. Do you remember that feeling?
I remember the feeling of looking forward to the time off. I don't remember if I actually had assignments, although I wouldn't be surprised if I looked back carefully and found out, yeah, the teachers were sometimes a little like that to say, well, yeah, you're going to have this winter break or this spring break, but here's a bunch of stuff for you to do. Good
Right.
luck.
Yeah, and the idea for this podcast, and let's just call it Rayhan and Sarah. So,
Yep.
even though we both have our doctorates now, but the impetus for this podcast was like based on our experiences, like to try to help other people, whether you're going through your a doctoral program or working towards goals in your life. Sometimes when you're in that process, it feels overwhelming, and I almost think could feel like you're losing hope in it. Like, how am I ever going to get through this?
Yep.
And what do you do? What do you think?
Well, yeah, I think we spoke about this a few weeks back. I guess the analogy that I would use, especially in the most recent PhD journey that we both had, was it was like for me, you had this mountain to climb, right? Which was the
Mhm.
PhD, and I knew where that peak was, and I still am not sure what's beyond the peak, but that's another that's another discussion. But I knew where the peak was, and that was to finish my PhD program and get through it. But throughout the whole journey, it was like when you're hiking or you're actually doing some serious climbing, you'd get to the top of what you thought was one peak, and then you'd look beyond the horizon and you'd see another peak.
On a
And you'd
hierarchy.
have and you'd have to just keep repeating that over and over again. And what really grounded me and the theme of hope was knowing that I knew where the ultimate peak was that I was trying to get to, and not to try to be distracted with those intermediate milestones, if you will.
Hmm.
Um, some of the challenges were it just seems like, and I think you may have had the same experience, was, everyone has life issues come up and obstacles come up in your personal life, your professional life. That's part of it, right? That's part of life. But it just seemed at some points like is the universe against me here? Because every time I turn around, there's like three or four new things coming out. And it's like this isn't normal. I don't recall ever having to deal with this much personal or professional challenges, but that just sort of made the process that much more sweet in the end. That was my perspective on it.
Yeah, I had mentioned to you at one point when we were talking before today about a book called written by Ryan Holiday called The Obstacle is the Way. So we learned that in our PhD journeys about, sometimes it doesn't feel too good when you have all these things coming down on you, but when you navigate them we'll talk about strategies, the thing about hope is that we can really control that. Right?
Mhm.
Somebody can't take that away from us. Like even when all this stuff is coming at us and we're like, you know, you know, why me? It's funny because we both felt that. So I think it's a common feeling for a lot of people. But even when we're faced with those types of circumstances, we still have the power within us. And that's why the title, the power of hope of this episode today. We still have the power within us to decide how we want to get through it. And
Yeah.
so hope teaches us it kind of it reconnects us to our purpose, right? We were in our PhD programs because we wanted to be there. Nobody forced us to go there,
Yep.
right? We chose that hard. We were in it. And having hope is a decision that we can take in that dynamic when you feel overwhelmed. What do you think about
Yes.
that?
Oh,
That was a mouthful.
no, I agree. I mean, really, sometimes it almost felt like hope was all you really had.
Right.
When everything's kind of mounting on you and you've got deadlines and you're taking care of a family or some of us were working full time as well or trying to fit in the things that we could and still have a social life and all of that. I almost look at it looking back, you know, PhD journey, sometimes people probably wonder, well, why? When I first started and I had a friend who had just wrapped up his PhD and I was like, yeah, actually applied for my own PhD program. And he asked me the question straight blank, why? Like he was so disillusioned with his process that I think he was kind of trying to discourage me from doing it. And going through the process, I kind of realized at the end of it, yes, we're there to learn, probably more intimately about our interests, our topic interests, our research interests, and learn how to conduct research. And ultimately, I think that was part of the goal. But for me, it also seemed to be more of a journey of endurance and patience.
Mhm.
And you really have to cultivate those kind of qualities to be successful. And almost that, I mean, that changes you. That changes a person, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's so interesting. You and I think so much alike. It's so interesting because I've been reflecting on it because it's not that far. I mean, I think you graduated not that far. I mean, it's been within 6 months or so. I mean, I think mine was
Yeah,
May and you were like right after May,
like
very
July,
shortly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Very like a month or two,
So,
yeah.
so it is still kind of new to us that, that we just got these degrees. And I'm reflecting on it now and I'm thinking, maybe it always was the journey. I mean, it's so nice that we finished, but maybe it
Yeah.
was always the journey, all the lessons that we learned on the journey.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I proved to myself internally. It was an intrinsic um quality, and maybe that led to some resilience, maybe that led to some confidence in myself. And
Hmm.
you talk about imposter syndrome. I've had that quite a bit throughout my life, professionally and
But
otherwise.
we're throwing that term away.
Yeah, we're throwing that term away
Called
because
emerging scholars.
that's right.
We are emerging scholars.
And I think I can confidently say that I do want to throw that term away. And I think it was the process itself which helped me
Ready?
grow to be able to do that. Yeah, right. Toss it in the trash behind me somewhere.
You notice I got some skills,
Kobe, there you go.
some ball
Uh,
skills.
yeah. It's for me that was I think the rewarding part of it for me was learning about myself in a lot of ways. And I have blind spots like everyone else. I have things that I want to improve like everyone else, of course. But knowing that I could get through, an endeavor like this, a goal like this, and not let big, huge setbacks or obstacles get in my way. That to me was like the probably one of the biggest lessons. And again, it comes back to hope. That's all I really had at some points was hope that this thing will be done soon or eventually.
Yeah, it's kind of like blind faith a little bit. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to cultivate that perspective because you don't because we didn't necessarily know where it was going to lead us. We knew we wanted to be there. We knew we were interested in the topics that we were studying. Most of them, some of the courses were, you know, a little had to really harness some motivation, but yeah, uh, it comes down to purpose. What's your purpose for doing things? It's kind of like when you get into the gym or when you're training for something, like what are you training for? What's your end goal? What's your end game? Are you building strength? Are you want to build endurance? Like what kind of
Yeah,
athlete are you? Are you building for powerlifting? Are you building to be a marathon runner? I mean, it's just all different kinds of goals that we can work towards. So you first have to ask yourself, like, what's your goal?
right.
What are you trying to get to? And then recognize that you're going to have setbacks along the way. And how do you keep hope and a positive attitude when when you're right in the middle of the forest?
That's actually a great point. And what it kind of makes me think about is, that hope, that goal, it's almost like your North Star. And when
Yes,
things get
love that.
difficult, you have to bring yourself back to the center of why am I really doing this? And so I guess that my question to you would be, did you have kind of your own goal or your own purpose and kind of maybe what was that as you were approaching the program?
That's a great question. Thank you for that question because it does help me think about and when I answer it, I'm going to say that sometimes you start something with with your goal or your purpose, and then you have to allow yourself space to evolve,
Hmm,
to adapt, because it might not look like what you originally thought it was going to look like.
right.
Okay. So to answer your question, my father had Alzheimer's disease a long a long time for like 10 years, and it's a disease, and we can talk about another episode together, but it's a very hard disease. It really chips away at like the fabric of the human being. He's a very athletic man, very smart man, top of his class at Georgetown University dental school, and it just kind of started to take away everything that he was. Now towards the end of the disease progression, I got him in a aquatic environment, a therapy pool. It was a warm water pool, and a friend of mine's a personal trainer. I'm not kidding. He used to come to life in the water,
Right.
smile, some words, moving around. I was like, wow, there's something to this aquatic. And I've always been into physical fitness and the power of being physically active in your life. But I was like, there's something to the water for disease. And I started to look into it, and there was very few studies done. And if they were done, they were case studies.
Hmm.
And so I was fascinated by it. That was the original impetus. I don't know if you remember in the beginning classes, like I used to always write about aquatic-based exercise for Alzheimer's patients.
Yes.
And then in year three, you know, um, our methodologist,
Yes,
Dr.
Dr.
Hibbert,
Hibbert.
said, I think you're gonna have to let it go. It's not really practical for a dissertation study. You can do it, down the road sometime in your career. And that's when you have to learn to pivot sometimes. And then, I
Hmm.
pivoted to something that was a little bit more um, for dissertations for a student, for a PhD student, was because Alzheimer's patients, the IRB, which is a governing body for your research called the Institutional Review Board, sees people with diseases like
Hmm.
that as higher risk,
Yep.
and so that path just wasn't, for my dissertation. That was the purpose. And it was emotional purpose too, which we both learned sometimes is not the best reason to go into something. It might get you there, but it could bias you as well. So
Correct.
that was
Correct.
it. And then it evolved and it changed for the better. I loved my study. It taught me so much, so many interesting things. And it's really how you and I became much closer friends, if you think about it. Not only did we both start to look at perspectives of successful aging, We had
Hmm.
the same, well, Dr. Hibbert was my methodologist. Was she your chair or methodologist?
She was my methodologist as well, and
Yeah.
she was, I think we had the same research class with her,
Yeah. So
and
that's,
definitely, yeah, I personally definitely clicked with her and her approach, and so I was
yeah,
very happy to have her join my committee, and I think was also kind of where we kind of she put us together in a way. She's
she
like, hey, you
did.
have
She
very
did.
similar topics that you all need to be collaborating somewhat.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. The way sometimes your path, sometimes it takes some little twists. But you have to bring it back to hope, you have to have, or faith, that you're open to, the lessons that you're learning along the way.
Hmm.
So anyhow, thank you for that question. Now I want to ask you back, if you don't mind, because I think it's interesting. I think our
Yeah.
listeners would love to know, what, and you talked about it a little bit on when you were first on the podcast, but share with us again, what led you to the journey.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And thank you for sharing a personal
Yeah,
anecdote, because I think that's important. We're human beings. We have our own drivers and motivations and
yeah,
our own challenges in life. I have a kind of a multi-goal approach. And if you look at it from my topic, I think maybe that's what I spoke about in the last podcast, but that really wasn't why I pursued my doctorate. And so maybe I could take a stab at talking through that a little bit. And this is not something I really share frequently or publicly at all. But in the late 90s into I would say 2008 or so, I was coaching fitness, nutrition, health, and I was really into it. Early 20s, mid 20s. I was a co-owner and a manager of several private nutrition stores. And so I had the opportunity to work with, I don't even know. I could not put a number to it. If I say hundreds or something like that, it kind of sounds like I'm uh, exaggerating, but there were quite a few. Let's just put it that way
okay,
over the years. And it was something that I loved. That was my passion. That was my hobby. That was basically my whole life, right at that point. I would train people in the gym, and I would coach them and mentor them, through my store. And around 2006, I had some serious health issues, and they basically derailed that point of my life. That up until that point, my whole journey as far as fitness, as far as health, and it took me away from it for several years. And I had plans at the time to go into some kind of terminal type degree, whether that was medical school I was looking at, whether that was continuing on with nutrition and exercise science and go the doctorate route. Unfortunately, that kind of pulled me away for about 10 years or more,
interesting.
and really was not able to do any of that from a personal level.
Hmm.
Um, and I was not able to exercise. I wasn't able to participate. And so when your whole persona, your whole
Identity.
identity is wrapped
At
up
the
in
same
that, right?
time.
Yeah. So back to the topic of hope. The
Yeah,
only thing that kept me going was hope. Really, truly. Hope that at some point I could overcome those challenges and get back to something that I loved. And guess what?
yeah,
Eventually, although it took many, many years and many times that it was like, this is actually quite hopeless, I was able to go back and start, basically restart that path and get my master's in exercise science and start coaching people
yeah.
again and start getting into the PhD program. So from a goals perspective, it was finishing what I had planned to do 15 something or so years earlier. And that's kind of my journey to that point.
Now, I have a question for you, and maybe
Sure.
a second to think about it, but would you have changed that? Do you think that having that experience, that pause when you went into this program gave you so much more depth and understanding how important, when I say your health is your wealth, what I'm
Hmm.
trying to say to people is, if you have your health, right, it's a blessing, right? So when
Entirely.
you went into this program and I mean, it's powerful.
Uh, You know, I think you hear that quite a bit, health is wealth and use it before you lose it, or you never know what you have until it's gone. I
Right.
lived that. I lived that as many people do. And having to deal with the frustration and the depression and the anxiety that comes with saying, I can't do something I love to do. I do not look like what I used to look like, or I cannot perform or exercise the way I used to, uh, I can definitely appreciate not only having to take advantage of your health while you have it, because I know full well what it feels like not to have it, but also what it did is it changed me quite a bit to have a little bit more empathy for people in their situations. Now, what I mean by that
Mhm.
is when I was coaching people, I think I was a little bit more rigid and dogmatic in my approach. And I'm coming from a more of a bodybuilding type background and dealing with a lot of bodybuilders and fitness people at the time was you eat chicken breasts and broccoli. I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you get the point. That's kind of the culture at that time, 20 years ago was you eat 6 meals a day and you're training in the gym hard and there's no excuses and you're sort of hardcore 100 miles an hour, right? But I came to the point where I realized that doesn't fit everybody's lifestyle. That does not fit
Right.
everybody's ability or desires or wants. And you have to actually be able to be flexible in a way to meet people where they need to be met. And it's
Hmm.
kind of that the golden rule, which is treat others as you wish to be treated. Well, that became the platinum rule, which was treat others as they wish to be treated. And that's sort of the motto that I try to live by these days.
And I would like to mention, hopefully it doesn't embarrass you in any way, but you mentioned to me you do a lot of training now. Like you don't charge people.
I
You
don't
do a lot
charge
of
people.
charity work.
Yeah, and
I
that's
don't know if you
that's
call it charity. I don't, how would you like to define it? So I don't put words in
well,
it.
I've never charged people, Sarah, even
And
20
I
years
think,
ago when I was doing this. And it's not because I mean, now to be fair, I was in a store environment, a retail environment, so it was almost like a service to people
right.
that would come in. But there were many people they would come in and they would buy sports supplements or they would buy want to find the latest and greatest thing to help them. And I would sit there and spend half an hour to an hour educating and
Yeah.
understanding where are you in your fitness journey. And there were many times where I would tell people, you really don't need this right now. This is not for you. Take these steps and then come back and let's talk again. And
Hmm.
I would not take it as a I'm a salesman, I'm going to sell you supplements approach. I was taking it always as an educator first approach. I want to educate people. And so that's been my approach from day one, really.
It's incredible. And I think, to frame it within this conversation today about hope, I think that in that role, you give people hope. And we've had this conversation offline about, like I had said to you, what do you think about all the GLP-1s and all these, injections and all these, these tools that we have to lose weight and not to get too much into that conversation, but I think they give people hope, right?
Mhm.
But I do think you still need to understand that it takes hard work sometimes
Yeah.
to meet your goals. And that's where I had, in the last episode, I talked about maintenance. Maintenance matters. So, maybe some of these things that we have, they give us hope, but at the end of the day, you still need to like sometimes it requires hard work to meet your goals. And perhaps, and I wrote a little note here to myself, I thought, hope provides us motivation, resilience, and a sense of purpose. So, I think, how do I say this? There's just no quick fixes to things for life, Now they're coming out with this data or research that some of these tools that people are using to lose weight quickly are not super healthy. And so I don't know. It's kind of, I think I just got us off topic a bit, but I think we can find hope in different ways, but I still think we need to recognize sometimes you got to do the hard work to get to the
Yeah.
goal.
Well, and
Maybe
maybe,
that's
maybe,
it.
yeah, no, seriously. I mean, and maybe we can have a future discussion about perspectives on that topic specifically. I'm not an expert per se, but I have some perspectives on it. But I will say this to your point, having hope, having goals is important, but you have to have a plan to follow through with that. And if
Yes.
you don't have a roadmap, you're kind of like it's the same thing the way I look at it in terms of diet or training. If you're just kind of winging it, are you really going to get to where you need to be or
Yeah.
where you want to be without some kind of plan in place? Now, there's multiple ways to get there. Everyone has an approach, and sometimes those approaches differ. But you should have some roadmap of where you want to be and how you want to get there. That's my opinion.
I agree 100% with that. And I would even break it down. So, like when we went through our PhD program, the school gave us the curriculum and the
Mhm.
roadmap. But even within that roadmap, you need to set your own steps on how you're
Yeah.
going to get to each through each phase of something. Like
Yep.
I remember like literally printing out the course, all the courses or there's 60
Right.
credits, and then they had these very pretty spreadsheet or graphics like phase one, you do this, phase two, you're going to do this. And I remember
Yep.
checking off each phase. It was so exciting to check off that phase. Always felt like there was another step and another step and another step. But within each of those big steps, there were small steps to get you through that roadmap. And that's actually something I thought, in terms of thinking about strategies, how do you cultivate hope, is you have to set small steps for yourself,
Hmm.
you know? And like Marilyn used to always say when she was on the podcast, is that, you celebrate those wins, it gives you
Exactly.
the positive, frame of
Hmm.
mind to celebrate those wins when you break things down into smaller parts. So I agree with you. Roadmaps are so important. I think about, I always think about, oh, I'd love to do an Ironman. But when you think about these athletes and people that become an Ironman, you don't get there just by wanting to do it. And it's like, it feels fun. And you have to have a roadmap. You
Yep.
have to have a roadmap in your life to achieve goals. And hope is a huge part of that. Hope gives you a purpose. Hope puts meaning in it. Hope helps you get past those periods when you just, you know,
Yeah.
mental blocks, roadblock, we talk about road maps. There's roadblocks too.
Construction zones and accidents and all kinds of stuff.
Exactly. And yields and
Yeah.
slowdowns and yeah.
Well,
So,
I mean, for me, it's this is how I operate, and I don't know if others operate the same way, but you kind of get this spark, this idea in your mind, and sometimes you're like, well, no, that's not going to happen, or that's far-fetched, or that's just not realistic. But I know something is serious when that idea, that spark will not go away and it eats at me and it starts to eat at me. And then that spark turns into kind of a raging wildfire at some level where I start to go and research and plan. And all of a sudden now I have a roadmap. And so what starts as just a kind of an inkling or not a passing fancy or a passing idea begins to take shape. And then I'm off to the races. And so I don't know if that's how others think, but that's how my mind operates at least.
well, it's so interesting because I have, I took some notes for today and not really looking at them very much, but I have something in here very similar to what you just said. I don't know if I can find it that quickly, but I will say, it's funny you should use the word spark because I tend to think about it as like a sparkle, right?
Mm,
You have to find, and maybe hope is like a sparkle. Like I always see it on the water. I live near the water, and with the way the sun reflects on the water, it's always sparkling. Or I'll see it at the pool, in the summer. Not so much now in the indoor pool, but I always would see this like sparkle. And what it represents to me, and perhaps it is having hope with something, is like try to keep yourself in things in your life that bring you joy
hmm.
and happiness and you feel positive about it. Try to surround yourself with people in your life that bring that out in you, the positivity in
Absolutely.
you. And and then go for it, Go for it. Like you just said, like research it, figure it out, go for it.
Yeah. And let the
Here
cards fall
comes,
where they
just
may.
do it.
Yeah, right. It sounds kind of cliched, but
I wish I come
isn't
up
that the
with.
truth? I
No,
mean,
it is the truth. It is the truth, and don't and that's the thing about hope. Like sometimes, and you had even mentioned about we threw it out, imposter syndrome. It's gone. But
yep.
sometimes we do second guess ourselves. And especially when something's new and you put yourself into a new situation, growth, okay? Growth is all about newness
Yeah.
and it can be scary. And you have to have hope. You have to have confidence in yourself that you are, that you're on the right path. And if you're not, you have to be open to pivoting.
That's right.
Wow, we're so philosophical. You would think we both have doctorates of philosophy or something.
You would think so, right? Well, you said something that resonates with me. It's surrounding yourself with the right people, and I think that's a big part of it too. It's there's whatever path you choose, whether it's a doctorate, whether it's a graduate degree, whether it's an undergraduate degree, whether it's a trade, whatever it is, an Ironman, having the right people to consult with when you might be unsure about your own journey or the how to's or the why you're doing something, just having a couple of folks that you could reach out to and bounce ideas off and have a soundboard, I think that's huge.
I
Um,
agree.
Having to walk a journey alone is scary and it's uncomfortable, right?
And it's not really how we're wired as human beings. I mean, when we started our program, so we were on a platform just for our listeners called asynchronous learning, which means that the courses don't necessarily have to be dynamic. It could be very one-dimensional, where basically you write discussion posts and you do your assignments, and there's no live interactions with anybody really. Doesn't have to be. Some courses the teachers did offer that for us. We had some had like Zoom based office hours.
Mm.
Um, but even like the instructional videos were like pre-recorded. And so it can be a very isolated, it could have been a very isolating experience. And maybe it was for some people.
Sure.
But we all built our cohort, and it would be interesting. I wish we could compare to other cohorts, but we built a community like pretty
Yeah,
quickly. Like I knew I needed it because when
absolutely.
when you're going after something and you're isolated, first of all, you lose the value of learning from other people, like you're saying.
Mhm.
I might see something one way and you might open up my eyes to see it a totally different way. Or I might be losing hope in the process and you might bring that spark back, So I think that's really that human connection is so important. And reaching out and asking for help, however it can be therapists, friends, you know, mentors, don't be scared to ask for help. I always say that.
Yep, that's a great
Yeah,
reminder for all of us. We all need it at times.
we do. So as we move into the holiday season, for our listeners today, wherever you are, there's no way for Rayhan and I to know where you're at. But we do want to say that, we hope that our message helps you if you're feeling a little lost, if you're feeling a little discouraged, if you're not sure. For some people, the holidays are hard, you know. There's supposed to be a time of joy and family and friends and great celebrations, but for some people, sometimes it brings up things they're tough. So have hope. You can get through it. Try to find the small blessings and everything, that comes your way. And never give up, never give up. If it feels too overwhelming, always ask for help. What do you think?
I
And it
echo
needs
all
to
of that.
be,
That's all excellent advice. And
yeah,
the only thing I might just say yes and to is it's okay to take a breath sometimes. I had to do it in the program as take a breath. I had to take a term off.
yeah,
I didn't let it derail my entire goal, but I'm human and I needed a little bit of a breather, and so I gave myself that grace. And so I think all of us can learn to be um, go easy on ourselves.
I
You
love
know,
that.
we got to have a little bit of that to keep nurturing that hope, I think.
I think that's great. I think there's a lot to learn. I like to call them pauses. I
Yes, right.
think there's a lot to learn, and we don't necessarily know what that can be unless we allow ourselves that time and kindness to ourselves. Well, that was, we just talked really well. This was great. I love
Time
this.
flew. How
Yes,
long have we
it
been talking?
did.
It's been a while.
Almost 40 minutes, I think.
Wow.
So listen, Rayhan and I, we wish everybody just a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. We're recording this the day before Thanksgiving. And believe it or not, he's on the West Coast and I'm on the East Coast. And so we found a way to bring our message together, even though we're on opposite sides of the country. And yeah, as we head into the holiday season, wherever you are in your life, if you're in the middle of your doctorate, we know what that felt like, especially moving into the holiday season. Like Rayhan said, be kind to yourself. And if you need to if your mental health is really suffering and you're really struggling, give yourself a break. It's okay, right? So,
Absolutely.
yeah. Anything else?
No, happy Thanksgiving to all, happy holidays to all, and looking forward to maybe some more conversations in the future.
I would love that. I would love to have you back. Would be a lot of fun, and we can dive deeper into all kinds of uh, philosophy. I always, I don't know if this is a word or not. Philosophizing? Is that a
There you
word?
go. We'll make it a word. We've, we'll coin it and we'll use it.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to us today, and we'll be back and with some more inspiration and some more hope. And as always, so grateful to have this platform to share and to provide our voices in the health promotion space. All righty. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.